Welcome, everyone, to our Tuesday celebration of service for Rotary. I'm Tracy Ivanovich, and I'm honored to serve as your president. So I have two thoughts for the days that are kind of corresponding, if you will. We'll call it the yin and the yang. The first is, the quote is, "The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy." Elon Musk. The yang is, the death of human empathy is one of the earliest and most telling signs of a culture about to fall into barbarism. Hannah Arendt is a German-American philosopher. So I thought somebody brought that to me last week, and I thought that was very appropriate for this time to share. And then for our reflection, we have a special. He's back. It's good to have John Diltz here in person to share with us his time as president.
Well, good afternoon. Excuse me. My name is John Diltz, and I was your club president in 2011 and 2012. So here's a little history. In the years before I became president, there sometimes was a sense that the club was drifting, not in a bad way, but in a routine way. We had become predictable, comfortable, and content. Phil Meyer shared that view, and in 2010, when he became the club president, he decided to do something about it. Phil was the station manager at WTIU and was an amazingly creative talent. He was an Emmy Award winner, a marketing expert, a visionary. But most of all, he was a planner. So in the fall of that year, Phil, as president, called for something that seemed novel to us at the time. Today, it seems not particularly innovative, but at the time, it was interesting. He called for the creation of a strategic plan. I have since been in a half dozen organizations that have developed strategic plans, and I'm embarrassed to say I no longer remember much about any of them. I certainly don't remember the details of this Rotary Club's 2010 strategic plan, but there is one salient and curious principle that emerged from that exercise that I do remember. And this is it. Basically, there are three ways to plan. First, you can plan for the future you expect, and that's a realistic plan. Second, you can plan for the future you hope for, and that's an aspirational plan. Or third, you can plan for leadership, and that's a dynamic plan. In 2010, we all knew that if we didn't change course, we would certainly become a smaller club, an older club, less active, and all the evidence pointed that way. And we knew we needed to at least plan for that. It would be a realistic plan. But Phil hoped for something different. He hoped for the thing that was most likely not to happen. He hoped for something bigger, younger, and consistently more active than we were. He was aspirational. Realistic plans are survival plans, while aspirational plans often collapse in the details. So we chose to talk about mostly leadership rather than strategy. So in the years that followed, it was no accident that Jim Bright was picked to become the club president in 2012. Nor was it an accident that successor presidents were recruited early. just as an aside, back in those days, in the 2008, 2009, 27, we didn't know who the president was going to be until there was a president. And sometimes we never knew for a long time who was going to be the incoming president after that. It was no clear plan for succession. Nor was it an accident that presidents were recruited early or prepared for success with lots of training and then encouraged to be creative. A good leader needs to have a plan, certainly, and needs to be able to persuade others that the plan is reasonable. But it's the skill of the leader as a leader, not the plan, that will save things when the plan goes awry. For example, we didn't expect all the trouble that came with COVID. And of course, we hadn't planned for anything like that. But we had planned to have in place the kind of dynamic leadership capable of turning out a new plan. And so we had Ashley Wesley as our president. From Phil Myers' genius to Jim Bright's energy, to Joy Harder's joyfulness, to Sarah Laughlin's poise, to Lance Eberly's steadiness, to Ashley Wesley's imagination, to Mike Baker's humor, to Aaron Davis's earnestness, to Sally Gaskell's charisma, to Elaine Barker's amazing enthusiasm, to Ron Barnes' steadfastness, to Tracy's salesmanship. We have been led into an unexpected present. And so as a result, we are bigger, we are younger, and more active than might have been expected to become 15 years ago. And that, my friends, is a plan. Thank you.
That was truly wonderful. Thank you, John. All right, and now for introduction of our guest, Bill Brown. I understand you were voluntold, so thank you for that. He's up here doing it, his first timer, yay.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest and welcome you. I would ask you to stand as I introduce your name. Rebecca Patton, a guest of Marilyn Wood. Melinda Cedar and Don Cedar, guests of the club. Anna Reiners, a guest of Judy Witt. Judy Klein, a guest of the speaker. And Marcy Hubbard, a guest of Sandy Keller. And Lori, do we have any guests online?
There are no guests online today. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. If you're interested in becoming a member, talk to the person next to you. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
All right, and we have a birthday this week. Liz Irwin's birthday is on the 29th. And for anniversaries, Mr. Rotary Jim Bright, 18 years, and Hank Walter, 8 years. All right. Okay, we have quite a few announcements, some good, some not as good. So first thing is good. It's time to draw for our quarterly charity, and thank you, Aaron. Fourth quarter, we will do the Bloomington Symphony. They will receive the $100 going forward, so that's exciting. The second one, feedback is a gift, and I've received quite a bit of it, that we should be talking about what is happening today. The situation today is nothing short of disconcerting, uncomfortable, and unfathomable on many levels, be it the Russia-Ukraine situation, Israel, Gaza, and on it goes. Fareed Zakaria, hopefully many of you are familiar with him, he stated on the Ezra Klein podcast a way to sum up what is currently happening here in a rather pointed fashion. And he stated that, for 30 years ago, if you had asked him who would destabilize liberal democracy, he would have stated Iran, North Korea, or Russia, most likely. And in fact, it's actually the United States that seems to be doing that right now. So I thought that was interesting, but it's important to remember that we are Rotarians, and there are many Rotarians, including in our community, who are comfortable with the changes that are underway. It makes it awkward sometimes because you have diverging opinions. As we are not a political organization, but we are a civic organization, you're encouraged to attend one of the living room conversations that Alon Barker is getting set up, and he's partnering with Braver Angels to help facilitate. There are also elements in our thoughts for the days and in our programs that help us remind us of actions that we can personally take within our community and within the world to help provide positive impact and align with each of our individual points of view. We are all people of action. If you're waiting for someone to tell you what to do, then you might want to think more deeply, as there are many ways to provide positive impact, whether it's physical support, financial support, emotional support to a friend, and the list goes on. I think Gandhi said it best. You guys know I love to quote Gandhi. Be the change you want to see. And I would add, don't wait for someone else to tell you what to do, right? All right. The next announcement, we have sign-up sheets for this quarter, so please, we need help. Please sign up and help us facilitate these great meetings. And then now to the not so great, although there's a little good in it, health updates and some sad news. First, on the positive, Judy Lewitt's service, the memorial service was fantastic. A lot of great feedback and a lot of support from Rotarians, not just within our community, but from the district. So lovely, lovely memorial service last Saturday. It is with a very heavy heart that I share with everyone that Mary Getzy passed away last night. She was diagnosed with metastatic cancer, a month ago, and hoped to have time to say goodbye, but her time ran out. And I'll follow up with Bob to get the details. Okay, sorry. She was initiated with me, and I just saw her 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about the kittens that we got from her, and she looked great. So you never know. On a positive note, Cheryl Barnes was in the hospital, but she is out and getting better. And Ron, it's good to have you here today because I know you've been very worried. So it's nice to hear that she is out. And then lastly, Dick McCaig, hopefully everybody was able to sign the card at the table. He's been sick in Arizona since January with multiple ailments, but the good news is they got a diagnosis. It's multiple myeloma. I feel like I could say that from the commercials on TV. Multiple myeloma, which is not an easy thing to overcome. He will be coming back to Bloomington. He is undergoing treatment, but it's going to be a bit of a path to get back. So we all want to send warm prayers his way. And then lastly, Mr. Shermis, I think you're going to share some program suggestions that you're looking for. Actually, not lastly, before we get to you, we have a thank you card that I'm going to pass around. This is from the Martinsville Bell Academy for all the work that we do with Teachers Warehouse and all the work that Teachers Warehouse does. It matters, and you can see some of the good things that the kids have done with that. So I'll pass this around.
As your faithful program chair, it's that time. So programs. We have one every single week. And so that means we do need suggestions from you, my wonderful fellow Rotarians. So send me suggestions. You can, of course, send famous people, but I will say it's hard for us to get them without a personal connection. You can suggest faculty members, but if you don't know them personally, good chances it will be difficult. Same in the world of business in terms of CEOs of large corporations. Suggest anyone, but saying you have a personal contact and are willing to host, which involves getting information out of the speaker, like the title of the presentation, the bio, the photo, and introducing the person is very helpful and has a much better chance of lining them up. There are all sorts of factors like topics, business, sports, academics, culture, entertainment. And there's diversity, old, young, people of color with disabilities, etc. And more that go into actually selecting speakers. But we will entertain anyone. So my email will be in this week's roundabout if you don't already have it. Send ideas soon. We are booked out 3 months, but it's actually time to start lining up our summer speakers. So thank you very much for any of your help you can give with the programs.
Okay, and with that, I will just say, I know a famous person, and I got her to speak today, so there. And her name is Carol Seaman. Carol has a JD. She's retired from Cook Medical. She's also a volunteer funeral consumer advocate. She's a native of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and in 1976, she moved to Bloomington for graduate school and law school, where she became interested in consumer advocacy while volunteering with the Indiana Public Interest Research Group on campus. She also developed an interest in environmental law and policy, and it was ultimately death of two friends within a year that turned her attention to what it means to support someone through the end-of-life process, including hospice and all the detail of planning a funeral and burial. She began studying federal regulations, that sounded riveting, mainly the Federal Trade Commission funeral rule and Indiana law regarding funerals and cemeteries, attending national seminars, and eventually co-founding a local educational organization for local consumers of funeral and cemetery products and services. And I think, Byron, you were helpful with that as well. So people of action. Recently, as a trained volunteer, Carol joined the Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program started by the Indiana Supreme Court and serves as a resource to help lawyers dealing with the terminal illness helping negotiate through the ethics and professional responsibility rules applicable to this situation. I know Carol for all that she does here in the community, whether it be with Circle of Ivy, whether it's Beacon, whether it's the Soup Kitchen. You'll see Carol everywhere. As I said, she's famous and we're lucky to have her. Carol.
I actually thought I fit better in the category of we'll take anyone as a speaker. That makes me feel better right there. Oh my goodness. First of all, I would like to start with a quote. I like the way you do that. I've been to some of your lunches. I've gotten to know people and what you do. And I like it that you start with some quotes and some happy things for the day. And so on a high note, I am going to quote Joy Harder, one of your own. She's helped me a lot on all kinds of different occasions. We have similar interests. And this is what she said. There's something about thinking about death sooner than later, sooner than you need to, that can lessen the fear about death and can just bring greater ease, not only to the person, but to the family. And that's something I thought about as I was preparing this, that, you know, so many people are afraid to talk about death. They don't, I mean, in a way, it's like it doesn't exist. But it's just so much easier if you can discuss with your family. It's a very loving thing to do, to talk about what you want, what you don't want, make it easy for them, make it easy for yourself. You learn what they want to do. So I thought that was a really good place to start. So I would like to start with, why did I call it Toward a Natural Way of Burial? Because that sounds really funny when everybody thought it was going to be just green burials. There's actually a difference. It's subtle, and there is a lot going on with the nerds who deal with all these sorts of things. But when you're talking about these two, natural burial or green burial, some people think they're just synonymous. But it's not easy. If you're trying to do a green burial, it's not always easy to find local funeral homes and cemeteries that meet the standards that are required of a green burial. It is a little more nuanced than saying natural burial. So natural burials have happened forever. I mean, so what we're talking about is not radical. This is not a radical idea of a green burial or a natural burial. It's because we weren't living around the time of the Civil War when things started to change. You know, for years, people just worked with what they had, where they lived, what their religion was, what their family culture was. That's how they would decide what to do or what they could do. And heaven knows what they did going back even beyond that. I've read things about prehistoric finds that they actually were very thoughtful about what they were doing. They buried people deeper than an animal would be able to dig around. You know, it was pretty basic, but we still have to think about that today. The Indiana law is it has to be at least 2 feet above you. And, you know, if you can't go down, the 6 feet under thing is if you go 6 feet under and try to do a green burial, nothing's going to happen. Nothing happens down there at 6 feet. So I don't even know what happens, but it'll just not be what you had in mind. Let's put it that way. Okay, so sorry, but Tracy said when I was talking to her about what I knew about this, she was dying laughing and wanted me to be funny. And I thought, well, I mean, you kind of have to be, but I feel very respectful about the whole thing and people's choices. I don't think there's one choice over another that I would, embarrass anybody about. But I took a class in nematodes, for instance, that lasted quite a while. And so I know more about nematodes than most people probably ever would. And I'm not going to tell you about it now because you just had lunch. So I like the term natural, and I use that because there are a variety of things you can do in a natural, a lot of options in that category. It also helps us remember that this whole notion of this being so radical, it's like, you're going to draw on what your family does. You're going to think about what people have done in the past. And you can work that into what you do now. So actually, long before anyone used the term natural burial or green burial, people would have been surprised to know that that was traditional, or like that's all they knew. So anyway, I think that it is helpful to start thinking at that level, like, what does my family do? What have we done? Think about the funerals you went to as a kid in your family, and start thinking about, what sorts of things are important to your family and what do you want to do? Okay, so, I knew I was going to do that. Okay, thank you. What is a natural or green burial? So, like I said, they're used interchangeably for some things, but I like this definition, this book, and I highly recommend it. It explains lots and lots and lots of things. The Green Burial Guidebook, it's trying to help you think of things that are not so expensive, that are more personal to you. That's one nice thing about green or any kind of a natural burial. It can be very personal to you. You can do what you want to do. I know some people prefer to just turn it over to the funeral home, let them do their thing. You're going to be there. You appreciate it. You pay for it. That's what you wanted. You're happy. Okay, that's fine. But other people want to be involved. They want to be part of it. They want to be there. They want to be with that person through that process, their loved one. So the idea of where it is, what you do, how you do it, can make a real difference to you. And being able to have that kind of hands-on personal connection, it's a kind of grief work I discovered. I lost my mother and my younger brother within 5 months of each other. And I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't been able to do the grief work that it took to get through that. And I had a marriage of my younger daughter in the middle of that. I mean, that was a crazy time, but we all did it together, including her with her fiance when this was all happening. It's a family thing, and you get to pick what you want to do. All my nieces and nephews, when my brother died down in Florida, went with me to pick out the things that they wanted to have at the remembrance for him. So it meant a lot. But so this basic idea of caring for our dead, least possible environmental impact. There are certain body preparations and burial practices that allow things to decompose naturally. And so it is a type of environmentally sound resting at peace. So a lot of this is geared toward what is environmentally sound to do. So I want to spend a little time on this. The Green Burial Council is an organization that started in the spring of 2005. And it just so happens that I got to witness the beginning of this thing. And so did Byron. We had Joe Seehey from that organization who started the Green Burial Council, thinking that, okay, everybody had their own definition. Let's figure out what are we going to do about this. So what Joe did was he got together experts in the area of sustainable landscape design, restoration ecology, conservation management, law, consumer affairs. All those people got together and came up with a set of standards that made sense that they could do this. So you could get certified. That was really helpful to be able to get certified to do this. I think it's kind of interesting when you look at that list of professions that I just mentioned, those are some of the professions of the future, if you ask me. From my reading and trying to keep up, I mean, the older books about it explain how this all started, but the things you're seeing now, the idea of sustainable landscape design, I mean, it's a very interesting thing, and they offer all kinds of programming you can take to understand that a little bit, or you could get certified with it. And being a part of this conservation management. So this first item up here, the hybrid cemeteries. So you may have a very traditional, conventional, or actually what they also call modern a cemetery, like the one on Kessler in Indianapolis. Has anybody been there to that beautiful cemetery? And I see a few hands. Yeah. So it's on Washington Park North. So what they did was a very traditional thing. You look at it and it's this gorgeous, you know, really detailed structured gardens. They have beautiful gates made out of limestone. They have rooms big enough that students in Indianapolis have proms there. It's just a rolling, I know. See, they don't care, they're living it up. So anyway, they have this enormous space that they work with and lots of land. And they do the typical traditional thing that you've seen all over the place with the headstones and everything. Well, then they found some property toward the back of their cemetery where they wanted to reclaim the land. It was close to some industrial sites, and so they blocked it off with trees. They started cleaning it up, and one part of it is what they're talking about here with a hybrid cemetery, a conventional cemetery that offers the essential aspect of natural burial either throughout the cemetery or in a designated section. So the designated sections they came up with was one area is prairie, and the other area is back in the woods. There, it's surrounded by trees, and it fits really the description of a green burial, which is no toxic embalming or any kind of toxins like that. Although it is nice to know that there's research on coming up with an alternative. Formaldehyde is on the way out, which is a good thing for people, whether you're learning to be a doctor in a med school in the, you know, a cadaver lab, all the way to being in, you know, a funeral director and having to do the embalming. So no vaults. And the language that Joe C's group used was, or any part of a vault. Nothing about it, no concrete, no fiberglass or metal. So I started looking up, what the heck, how did they get this idea of burying tons and tons of cement in the ground every year? Where did that idea come from? And so what I found out is that in 1930, a man named Wilbert Haas, a German American, he was a concrete business owner, and he toured the tomb of King Tut, the boy king. And it was open to the public at the time, and it resulted in his brainstorm idea to encase caskets in concrete vaults to make burials closer together so you could get more in. Because, I mean, okay, so, and it increased their revenue potential. That's why they did it. So this was about at a time when the funeral industry was trying to be more professional. You can't fault them for trying to be more professional. And it was solving problems for different people that didn't really think beyond that problem, like having the subsidence part of the sinking of the land. So that's why they wanted to have a vault there. So, well, the other thing is a lot of people were interested in that because everybody has their own thing about the burial or about dying or what happens to you after that. Some people want to be dry. They do not want to get wet. They want to be in a casket. They want to have a seal around the casket. They want it to be in the vault. They want the lid on the vault, and they want that sealed like that's going to last forever. Okay, well, it's not, because eventually the concrete breaks down, but water will go where water will go. So anyway, but that's what started this whole thing. So there's a Wilbert vault factory in just about every major town. Ours is out on Adams. You may have gone by there and wondered what that was. It says Wilbert, and it has like stacks and stacks of vaults waiting to be, and you'll see them go around town, you know, in the back of a flatbed, you know, going to the funeral or the cemetery. So, yeah, so it costs a lot of money. They cost a lot of money. And so then they also charge for smaller vaults if you're going to inurn the ashes of your loved ones. So there's small ones. They used to be about $250. There's bigger ones. I don't know why you need a big one for, like, ashes are about 5 pounds. But they put them in these big vaults, and that's $750. So it really keeps raising up the price. So anyway, I wanted to show you what this is an example. It's been a while since I've been here, but this is Kessler Woods, which is part of what I was telling you about that conventional cemetery. It really is beautiful. As you're going away from the conventional part, you're going to pass the where you see the Queen Anne's Lace. That's where the prairie part is. And they use GPS to keep track of the location, but they're trying to fix this land, you know, to reclaim it, basically. Then as you go back through on that drive, I couldn't take pictures because there were people back there at a grave, so I didn't want to. But that requires a biodegradable grave marker, in addition to whatever else it said in those standards I was telling you, no embalming and that sort of thing. But they sometimes use sandstone for that, or just wood, because the people don't mind if it goes away. They know where they are. They also have a GPS for that. And this is the sign that they had, habitat restoration. So again, this is in the, it was actually, there were more flowers than that. It was really beautiful, a very peaceful place to be able to visit. And this is that's their sign. It's another part of that prairie. It's quite an expansive space, so they are making good use of it. So I want to go back to the standards a minute. There is such a thing as a conservation burial ground, a natural cemetery established in partnership with a conservation organization. It includes conservation management plans. They're trying to uphold all these practices that they came up with. And I think this is a possible opportunity for us in Bloomington because we're running out of space. So of the city cemeteries, they had green burials available at White Oak. Those are all spoken for. It's very difficult to have like one massive place where you can do that. So this is a possible idea, which is to partnership with somebody like Sycamore Land Trust, somebody that already has this land that's going to be kept in perpetuity that way. They take care of the land part, you take care of, you know, setting up a nonprofit to take care of the burial piece of it. So it's something to think about, you know, I mean, I don't know what else we could do with that idea, but except start talking and, just getting some ideas of maybe there's place out in the country if you want to do more of the prairie kind of a thing. Anyway, the private cemeteries are, they have plenty of room, but they don't do green burials. Even the Jewish and the Muslim part of Valhalla, they have to have a vault. Their idea is they need to be near the earth, so they just turn the vault. So they still have the subsidence protection and they get what they wanted. So they have their own section that they care for. They really kind of pay for that land and then they get to use that. What happens usually is funeral directors help you find land that is on an established cemetery. That's an Indiana law, an established cemetery. And so they can find places for you that will allow for a green burial, because some of the older ones out in the county, sometimes the ones at churches, you're able to do that. I'm looking at the time here. I want to talk about what I call managing expectations. I think this is really essential when you're starting to think about the planning and what you want to do. So you want to know, I think it's important to know that each of these, we're going to talk about funeral homes and the cemeteries and then consumers. What's your role and what can you expect? Some people I know, when they have a funeral to deal with and plan at the time, like we need to do something right now, they're so grief-stricken that they forget that these people are in a business. It's a business. It's a business. They have to pay for the materials they get. They have to pay their people that are there. They have overhead. So it's important to remember that and not expect them to really have, I mean, they have to sell stuff. They have to keep in business. There are lots and lots of funeral homes in this state, and sometimes the years vary. I mean, like the pandemic really threw off all of those kinds of ways of looking at it, but you really have to watch out for yourself, this caveat emptor idea. And I don't think that that's the idea that they take advantage of you is that rampant, because most of the ones I've met and the funeral directors, they want to do something that's going to be helpful for your family. This is what you want. They're going to try to help you get that. I've had nothing but good luck in that area. There are others that are just really thinking about the business of it. And I mean, that's what happens. So, Tracy mentioned about the federal law. The Federal Trade Commission has what's called a funeral rule. And the Federal Trade Commission is in Elon's sights right now. They're looking at it. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if they get rid of the funeral rule or the oversight. That's the only oversight federally of funeral homes that we have. So what they're doing in the funeral rule is that they aren't allowed to misrepresent things. They are allowed to have like a non-declinable fee that covers their overhead, because they have a lot of overhead, especially if they have a crematory and they have to have the vehicles that they need to be able to pick up bodies. Sometimes it's not enough to have one, but the basic things that they need to do, though, is if you're looking around and trying to decide what you want to do, ask for a general price list. They have to give you a general price list. It explains exactly what it is you're trying to buy. And they can't make you buy a bundled thing. You can't be forced to buy one thing just to get the thing you want. They can't do it that way either. It's important to know that no Indiana law requires embalming. There isn't one. I've heard nurses and social workers in hospitals tell patients that it's required. It's not. It's not required. Now, if there's a disease involved or something like that, your doctor is supposed to report that to the health department, but it doesn't keep you from not being embalmed. So I think that's a very serious misleading thing. And the AI that I've read when I was doing research was saying all kinds of crazy things about why you had to have it, when you had to have it. So be careful about that. The FTC also has green guides for the use of environmental marketing claims. So if they say they're doing a green burial there and they're not, then, or they have certain, like if somebody says, oh, this new embalming fluid is green and it's not, then that's a problem that can be dealt with by the FTC. Okay, so who is responsible for what? Again, with, oh, I forgot the cemeteries. They may require vaults for burials. They can, it's their cemetery, especially if it's a privately held cemetery. That's their cemetery. They don't want to have to deal with the sinking, so they want it fixed. They may want flat headstones so they can mow quickly. They have rules about decorations or whether you can have little, those lights that, the solar lights that are on at night, or, you know, all the different kind of shepherd crooks that they use to hang up stuff that get in the way of them maintaining that property. That's within their right to make those decisions. Okay, so with the consumer part, understand your rights. I just told you how you can look at that funeral rule while it's there. I hope it's still there. Know what you want. Talk to your family. Think about your religion. Think about your family's tradition. Think about where you live and what's available. Ask about things that you might be interested in doing. But know what you want. If you go in there and they say, how can I help you? And you say, I don't know what I want, then they're going to tell you what you want. So, you know, think about that. Communicate your wishes to your family, your lawyer, your healthcare representative, and your doctor. You need to have current advance directives. That's key. And if you go in for surgery, they're going to ask you to have that. They want to know what you want. And for end of life options and questions. This is something Joy's good at. So it's something that the hospital has a form that they're used to using. So you might as well use the one they're used to using, but read it carefully so you know, and ask questions of your doctor if you don't know what it means. The other thing about advance directives is, you know, the issue of what do you do if you're on vacation in Florida or, you know, something like that. Those kinds of things are kind of difficult. So I highly recommend the website for Compassion and Choices too. I put it up here. It's just compassionandchoices.org. They have the forms for every state in the union, and they explain them to you. And they tell you about things you might not have thought about. Like you may say, I don't want any drugs. But if you develop an infection at the end and you're miserable, and maybe like a UTI is very common with all the kinds of equipment that they use with you, and you feel terrible, have you seen elderly people with a serious infection? They act like they have dementia, and they don't have dementia. So if you can take a simple antibiotic so you can still talk to your family at that point in time, you might as well do it. So be careful what you're saying and try to do some, you know, just research about this. And there's lots of online resources. The program that Byron and I were affiliated with was a affiliate of a National Funeral Consumers Alliance. And you want to look at funerals.org. It has to have an S in it. That will help you with that one. And there's a form that Indiana has, which is mentioned here, code 29-219-9, ask your lawyer about it, where you can say, these are the things that I want. And and file it, and your family will have it, and your lawyer will have it. I think that's the Indiana Funeral Planning Declaration. And the last thing is, Indiana is one of 10 states that require funeral director involvement at every level. So expect that to get a burial transit permit, any kind of funeral or memorial service they need to be there. And the final disposition of the body, they have to be there for all those things. So I thank you for your attention. It's yeah, it's an interesting topic. That was a lot I threw at you, kind of high level, but is there anything I can help you with on a question?
I noticed you didn't say anything about cremation. And I've heard different things about how green cremation is compared to, kind of composting. Can you comment on that?
Yes, I didn't bring that up because I'm talking about burial. I was asked to speak about green burials in particular. But there is a lot of discussion about which one's more green, whether the cremation or the body part. So cremation takes an incredible amount of energy to burn, and it burns for quite a long time. Between the burial and the cremation, they should cost about the same thing, but you just have to consider also like how, like if you have a crematory in your town like we do, it's pretty much easier. You can just take the body, they keep it for 48 hours, that's the rule. And then they do a cremation and you get that back. And they have very good filters on the top. Some places, especially if they don't maintain their crematory, will have mercury flying around, from fillings and things like that. And just trying to avoid having to drive somebody. So if you're trying to do a green burial and you end up having to drive to South Carolina to do it, that's not helpful. So you really have to balance it. It's just a balancing thing, cremation or a green burial. But the green burial should be simple. I mean, if people want to build their own caskets, which they do, they want to be involved with all that, it may come out being less expensive. But it's worth looking at.
Thank you. One thing you didn't mention was giving your body to, for example, the IU School of Medicine. And I just wanted to add that they are licensed as funeral director. So
Right.
you do not have to go through what you think of as the regular funeral director. And that is another way to give while you're dead.
Yeah, that is a good point. And I've had relatives who have done that. Again, I was focusing on burials and what is a green burial, but that is a good idea. You can find information about IU's program. I think what they end up doing at the end, my family was in Ohio at that time, but they do a cremation and they will have a place for you there. So it doesn't cost anything. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is a good idea. They don't always, and you can't expect them though. They don't take everybody. They do. Sometimes they have too many. I've tried it before to help somebody. If they have too many, they can't keep them. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you very much. I'm an ordained minister. My father was also a minister, so I've done hundreds of funerals. But my question is, how can this procedure enable people to get over their grief? We call it grief work, and everyone has to deal with that. How does this method help a person get over their grief?
I guess I'm not sure I totally understand it, because for me, it's like you're very hands-on. The person, are you worried that they don't have a funeral with a pastor? Or I'm not sure your question.
What was the question? Sorry.
Well, I guess I'm not sure. So to me, I would still have a funeral with a pastor, still go through all of that, still have that 48 hours, invite my congregation to come, that whole thing. So I think you'd still be doing grief work. You're still like, there's grief work in building a casket or making a shroud, or for the people that take care of their own, like the Mormons and the Jewish people and the Muslims, washing the body. They're doing all those things that's grief work right there. So I guess I don't see how you think there wouldn't be grief work involved.
No, those are all examples of grief work. So You've answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any questions online?
Sandy had a question up here. He's coming. He's all the way at the back.
Thank you. Kind of in response to Tim's question and also what you said about families getting together in the woods and taking part in the burial itself. One of my past board members is the board president for a group in Colorado, at Crestmont, Colorado, called Circle of Fire. And they actually do public cremations, much like the Indians, where they're on a loft and everybody helps bring wood, things that will burn to the fire. And they actually all help set this on fire, and it's done very quickly. Of course, it's at a higher elevation, but has there been any discussion about something like that in Indiana?
Well, no, because we're a part of the 10 states that don't really allow family directed burials and things like that. That's the thing that would stop, because those people also take care of the body. They do the whole thing. And so that's why we can't do that. Now, there have been in Bloomington, there was an exception when the Dalai Lama's brother died. They allowed them on that property for that purpose only. And because of the extreme situation, I mean, he's the Dalai Lama's brother. And so they wanted to be able to use that. It is a type of cremation, but otherwise they don't have people doing that without any special permission. Yeah, but it's a very nice thing to do.
I really enjoyed your presentation. There's a very clever show on Netflix called 6 Feet Under. Have you seen it?
The whole thing. And I bought the box of books or the
Is it, how accurate
I
is
bought all the tapes. I watched every one. I know how everybody died.
Is there accuracy? I would think there is a lot.
Well, the thing that's scary accurate about it is that that's about a very big international organization taking over funeral homes like they were trying to take that. That's a real thing. And they did do that. It's SCI and it's a real corporation. The companies that are called Dignity are part of that. So that's how you tell whether it's a local or part of that organization. I mean, my cemetery in Fort Wayne, where my whole family is, that's a Dignity place. And it was originally that cemetery was partially designed by Frederick Law Olmsted. It's absolutely stunning. It is a beautiful place and it's huge and it's been there forever. And they don't use any pictures of it. They're all pictures from headquarters. So it just, and the people that used to be there, that knew all the families, were replaced. So yeah, that's what I got out of 6 Feet Under. I was trying not to be political or anything, but thank you. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Carol. And in recognition of the program, the great program that you gave, we will be donating $100 to the warehouse in honor of your program. And with that, I'd like to acknowledge all those who have helped us today. First, Natalie, our executive assistant. Steve Wicks, fantastic greeting. Bill, way to introduce there. Thank you very much. Lori, great job online for Zoom. John, wonderful, wonderful reflection. Thank you for providing that insight as to some of the thought processes behind. And Jim Bright, reporting. Marilyn, sorry, I got you guys confused. You're next week. Marilyn, thank you for reporting this week. And then Michael for camera operation and Isaac for Zoom and audio. Our next meeting will be on April 1st, April Fool's Day. So be prepared. In the Stateroom East and Zoom and on Zoom. And our speaker will be Tia Arthur, the director for CASA. And with that, if you could put the screen up, for all of those who are able, please stand and we'll do the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, joy, is it fun?